certificate do you think it should be?
Well, thereby hangs a tale. The film is a 15 certificate.
I'm asking you your opinion.
Well, I think that would be preempting the producer coming on and saying...
We can ask him when he's on, but when you watched it, did you think...
It didn't surprise... Here's what I think. It did not surprise me at all that the BBFC gave it a 15 certificate because it features in it language which, under their rulings, is 15 certificate language, in that it uses the F word, I think, something like 16 times.
And is it appropriate, therefore, that it has a 15, in your opinion?
I think in the BBFC's...
I'm asking your opinion. You don't hold back from your opinion ever. Is this the appropriate certificate or not?
It's the only certificate... I'm trying to be fair to the BBFC whilst being fair to me.
In your opinion?
No, okay, fine. In my opinion, I'd show it to my 12-year-old daughter. That's my honest answer to that question. But I understand why the BBFC have done what they've done, which is that in the BBFC's feeling is, if you have that much swearing in a film, it has to be a 15 because parents will complain. I, personally, would be very proud to show that film to my daughter because you know what? I think that's an important, engaging story and I can live with her hearing that word. But I understand why the BBFC have made that decision.
And she probably hears that word around the house anyway.
Never.
Dear experts, which is always very good. On Dagenham, sounds great.
You made me feel like a squirming politician then, because I'm trying to.
I was asking you your opinion, and you seemed remarkably reluctant to give it.
But I'll tell you for why. The reason is because I'm very loath to throw mud at the BBFC without being fair to them, because I think that the BBFC have become a different body to the body they were before. But so my honest answer to that is, personally, I don't have a problem with it, but I understand that other parents would.
Talk about Dagenham again.
Yes. Well, the situation is that the Made in Dagenham has a 15 certificate from the BBFC. It contains, and Stephen will correct me if I'm wrong here, Stephen Woolley, the producer, it has something like 15 or 16 uses of the F word. The BBFC, therefore, have ruled that it should be a 15 certificate. Stephen is of the belief that
let's find out, shall we?
Oh, I'm sorry, you were throwing to me. I thought you were sort of saying you do the filling. That's what I was doing.
To actually tell Stephen what he thinks.
Fine, well in that case I'll just be quiet and you run the show for me.
Hello Stephen, what do you think about that?
Hi guys. I can't work out when I'm mic'd up or not.
You're mic'd up now, so tread carefully.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. A few things. I thought Kick-Ass was a more superior film to Scott Pilgrim. I think it did got that combination of the violence and the comic strip so right.
I like Kick-Ass very much.
And it was mentioned this morning in the article I wrote, and I just want to say what a great film I think Kick-Ass is, because they subbed my marvellous Kick-Ass to just Kick-Ass. So I just want to say that, just to get the record straight, I think it's a lovely film.
It is.
A really brilliant adaptation of a comic strip. I think one of the few really successful ones. What were we talking about? Oh, the certification.
Your film.
Yeah, I mean, Made in Dagenham was a real labour of love for me and my producing partner, Elizabeth Carlson. We spent 4 years working on the script, and when we finally got a good enough script, we'd cast Sally and got our wonderful director Nigel Cole on board, and then the cast were incredible because they all said yes. Bob Hoskins was our first choice, Ross Pike was our first choice, Miranda Richardson was our first choice. It was incredible. We just had an amazing cast, and they all just said yes, and they all loved the script. And so we made the film. Billy wrote a lovely script set in 1968 on a factory floor. And one of the things that we loved about it, having 3 daughters myself, was that making a film about empowering women, I think, is an important thing. And it's also important that you allow young women to see a film like this. I'm not saying that there's a huge crowd of 13 or 14-year-old girls out there desperate to see Made in Dagenham, but why ban it from them for the sake of the fact that we were very clearly trying to be realistic about the way people spoke on a factory floor, and that included a lot of the use of the word F in the swear word F, I should say.
Yes, we're there on that.
Yeah, in a very casual way, in the way that people spoke. I mean, I was brought up in Islington, and you know, my family, a lot of them worked in factories, and I had 3 very strong aunts and a very, very vociferously strong nan, my grandmother, who could turn the air blue. That was how people spoke in those days, and to this day, I'm sure on factory floors across the world, people use it almost like a punctuation mark. Of course, films made in 1968 couldn't use the word because at that time, you know, you really couldn't get away with anything in terms of films. But these days, the word is used quite liberally in lots of movies. But I was really shocked that we got a 15 certificate.
Why?
Well, because the word is so casually used in the context of the film, which has
Not
no
in 12
violence.
certificate movies.
Well,
You must have known, Steve. Come on, you
No, I really didn't. So I really, honestly.
Can you name any other 12 certificate film which has got lots of hard swearing in it?
Scott Pilgrim has got the F word. One sequence in the middle of Scott Pilgrim where they use the F word at least 30 times, but they bleep it. But you hear the F and you hear the K. So bleeping
but crucially,
is worse for me. Bleeping is worse for me than actually hearing the word, especially in the context of a non-sexual, non-violent, and that's very, very important, a non-violent manner.
Surely you must have known that with that amount of swearing in it, it was going to get a 15. I mean, it's just...
I didn't. Go and see the movie. Go and see the movie, and we've had so many screenings where I've asked audiences after, what did you think of the swearing in the film or the bad language? And they just look at you like you're crazy. What bad language? It's used in such a way that you don't even know it's there. I had no idea.
But rules is rules, presumably.
Well, I had no idea we had more than 5. I mean, the censor said, well, if you've got a handful, well, it will give you a 12A. And then they counted them up, and it came to, I think actually more than 15. And I didn't really, honestly, truly did not notice as we were filming the film, as we were editing the movie, that there was such a proliferation because when Bob Hoskins or Andrew Riseborough or Sally Hawkins uses the word, it just is, it's seamless. It's why the film, I think, is a good example of a movie that can match something that's realistic with something which is almost dreamlike, that they actually win this battle, and they win it as extraordinary people. They're ordinary people who are extraordinary, and that's what I think the big message of the film is
to say something
we as ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and I think that's a great message, and as ordinary people they use that word.
But here's the thing.
As you both do, I'm sure.
Here's the thing. Firstly, I love the film, think it's great, and as I've said now on the record, I would be happy for my 12-year-old daughter to see it. Well, she's not quite 12 yet, so I'll wait until she's 12. But here, I think that the thing that Simon's raising, and I understand entirely, is that the BBFC policy is you can have a handful and you can get away with it, but you can't have 16 or 17, and the reason is from their consultation with the public that at that level parents will complain to them. Now, I think the interesting question here is when Simon asked me earlier on in the show, do you think their judgment is right? What I said was I would show it to my daughter, but I understand that other people would not want to do that for exactly because oddly enough in this day and age the thing that the BBFC get more complaints about than almost anything is swearing. So the question is, do you? I mean, you must have been given the option of taking them out. You must have been given the option of dubbing.
Well, we have the option of taking them out, but it would have been crazy. It would have been denying the truth of the film, and I'm not going to start taking out like 15 F words and to have a 12A. I mean, the point of this movie is that we wanted as wide an audience to see it as possible, and we don't really want to doctor the movie. That would be really. I mean, I've never done it before. I refuse to take Ray Fiennes' buttocks out of End of the Affair for the sake of
which got you an 18 rather than a 15.
Yeah, and they changed the law after that. They said to me, the censor said, if you submitted the film now, it would get a 15 straight away. Actually, it might even get a 12A these days because the censorship has changed so much. And there's not a single swear word in it. No, I think the thing that really gets my goat, I suppose, a little bit, is that everything should be taken in context. You can't simply say if you have 5 nipple shots or if you have 2 buttock shots, you're going to get a 15 or a 12 or an 18. It's crazy. Everything should be in context. When we made Michael Collins, the censor in Ireland showed the film, as I've done with Made in Dagenham. He showed it to politicians, they showed it to schools, they showed it to magistrates, and decided that Michael Collins was a very important film because it told a part of history that he felt Irish kids should know, and they gave it a U certificate. And that was because the censor felt that the film should have the widest possible audience. That's the film censor. If a censor can have an opinion, then that's not a bad thing. I do agree that if you're going to have the F word used in either an explicitly sexual manner or an explicitly violent manner, then absolutely it should be a 15. In the same way as that in the film that we've just praised, in the context of Scott Pilgrim, which is Kick-Ass, that film should have a 15. It has a lot of swearing and in particular associated with violence. I think swearing associated with violence, yes, but swearing as a commonplace, natural thing that Chaucer would have done, or Lily Allen might be singing songs about.
Yeah, but it gets
or rap
dropped when Lily Allen has a record played on the
only
radio.
in this country.
When
Only in
Lily
this
Allen
country.
plays,
But we're in this country.
when a Lily Allen record is played on the radio, it sounds like there's something wrong with your radio. And I mean, that's how
Yeah,
it.
it's ridiculous.
But
you
just
go
what-
to
but just
Italy,
what-
France, Spain, they just play it on the radio. Nobody
But
gives
we're
a
in
hoot.
the UK, and the bit I can't quite get my finger on is the fact that director, writer, producer didn't realise that with that amount of the F word, it was going to get a 15. It was just
No, we didn't. Actually,
blindingly
seriously,
obvious.
Simon, we seriously don't sit around discussing the BBFC when we're writing scripts or when we're shooting films. It only comes at the last minute, and it was a bit of a blind spot that this happened.
Julie in Ipswich
and
on this text,
Carry on.
my daughter is 12 next month. She's only just left primary school. I'm not a prude by any measure, but I wouldn't want her seeing a film littered with very strong swearing. There's enough time for her to deal with it when she's older.
I think
So-
she should go and see the film, and then.
But she can't go and see the film, Stephen, because it's a 15.
No, the mother should go and see the
Oh, I
film.
see, sorry.
And then text you back and let you know whether
Okay.
or not she should be allowed to take her daughter. Because I have not yet a single parent that has seen this film and wouldn't want to take their 13-year-old.
Stephen, we appreciate you making a very perilous journey into the studio on a pretty horrendous day for the weather and all that kind of stuff, and appreciate you coming and talking to us, Stephen. Thank you, as ever.